Anybody talking about the Congressional Black Caucus Scholarship Program, and now they're suing. They're being sued. The Congressional Black Caucus is being sued by non-Black folks for discrimination because their scholarships are only for Black kids. I told you this day was coming. Back in 2023, when they dragged affirmative action all the way to the Supreme Court and won and gutted the nation in schools and programs, I told you they were coming for Black scholarships next. I told you. So this scraggly old man, Edward Bloom, who dragged affirmative action to the Supreme Court, has filed a lawsuit against the Congressional Black Caucus and its scholarship fund for discrimination because they offer scholarships to Black students in districts represented by the Congressional Black Caucus. And now the plaintiffs probably won't just be white. They'll be Hispanic, they'll be Asian, because that's the game that they play. Mind you, there's a Hispanic scholarship fund and an Asian Pacific Islander scholarship fund. There's money for all of us, but that's the pattern and that's the playbook. Look at who we went after. The Fearless Fund, Black women, affirmative action, which actually benefited white women. This man has gone after DEI, higher education. He's even sued law firms about their diversity practices. And now he's coming after the CBC, all part of their playbook. All a part of their playbook. Let's see. Since the Supreme Court ruling in 2023, the number of scholarships with race, ethnicity, or gender criteria has dropped by 25%. And that was before this week's lawsuit. So higher education, corporate DEI, and now Black scholarships and nonprofits are on the chopping block. So now the question is, what you gonna do about it? I don't hear anybody.
Pray for the president?
Oh, absolutely. He needs a lot of prayer. And
what do you pray for? What do you ask God
well,
for?
I pray in as much as he has influence and power over people I care about. I affirm his humanity as I affirm the humanity of anybody and everybody. But part of that prayer is about accountability. I have to be honest about what he's doing. His kind of unabashed, unvarnished bigotry, the cruelty that he is unleashing on American streets through his version of ICE, those things have to be condemned. And so for me, prayer and prophetic speech, which holds power accountable, those two things go hand in hand. I am not about to be the chaplain blessing that which is ungodly and unjust.
There are a lot of religious leaders who go to the White House and not only pray for the president, but make a show of suggesting that he was chosen by God for this mission.
Yeah, they're wrong. And there were Christians who thought that slavery was somehow godlike, American chattel slavery, and they justified it. And they used scriptures to support their position. It just so happens that I'm the product of a countervailing tradition that was literally born fighting for freedom, that understood that God didn't create us to be slaves. That's why the Black church was emerged. When we say the Black church, we've never meant anything racially exclusive about that. We are literally talking about the anti-slavery church, a church that was born correcting the American heresy that somehow tried to reconcile the faith of Jesus to slavery.
Do you pray for the president?
But Whitey's on the moon. 10 years from now, I'll be paying still while Whitey's on the moon. You know, the man just upped my rent last night because Whitey's on the moon. No hot water, no toilets, and no lights, but Whitey's on the moon. I wonder why he's upping me. Because Whitey's on the moon? I was already giving him $50 a week, and now Whitey's on the moon. Taxes taking my whole damn check. The junkies make me a nervous wreck. The price of food is going up. And as if all that crap wasn't enough, a rat done bit my sister Nell with Whitey on the moon. Her face and arms began to swell, and Whitey's on the moon. Was all that money I made last year for Whitey on the moon? How come I ain't got no money here? Whitey's on the moon. You know, I just about had my fill of Whitey on the moon. I think I'll send these doctor bills, air mail special, to Whitey on the moon. I can't pay no doctor bill.
Peace and love and welcome to Black Press USA's morning show, where we bring you the headlines in the culture. Riding shotgun this morning is none other than former California Assembly member. He's been an LA commissioner. Welcome, Dr. Michael Davis. Good morning, Dr. Davis.
Good morning, Niel, and thanks for having me this morning.
Whitey's on the moon. Black people's on the moon. They was talking. Donald Trump was talking to him. Did you see the clip of Donald Trump talking to the astronauts last night? And when it was their turn to respond, it was awkward and uncomfortable silence for at least a minute and a half. They had no response for the president. Not one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's said that he has probably the lowest polls, for those who care about polls, that he has ever had in his tenure. And so for those who really are concerned about what people are thinking, that's a reflection of where we are in terms of the leadership and those who are being led and what they think about it.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, all the way up in space, he still can't get no love. Okay. And then we also heard for Pastor and U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock, who was talking about faith and, you know, the difference between an evangelical and what the Black church is all about. And speaking of the Black church, Pastor Mark Whitlock will be joining us tomorrow as our guest co-host. So you want to tune in for that as we mix faith and politics. But Raphael Warnock definitely, you know, prays for the president. Do you pray for the president, Mike?
Well, I think for those who are Christian, who are into prayer, you pray that we have a circumstance where people are going to be felt respected. And when you have people who don't do that, you pray for them as well, in terms of hoping that God will hear your prayer, that the threat and the barrier that we experience, that God knows best, but that he will hear your prayer, that those who deserve to be treated with the utmost respect and dignity have their day to be so. So yeah, for that reason, Christians do pray for those that are opposite and that have different values that are disruptive. They pray for them.
Let me just say this. You're taking the political approach, because I asked, do you pray for the president?
Oh,
but you're giving me the political, and we're going to leave that right there. And then our first video,
right there.
Let's leave that right there.
Yes.
And then our first video, we're going to get into that a little bit later. But speaking of the president, I think RNG started us off with a happy Tuesday as we wait for Trump's Armageddon. Keep in mind, 10,000 veterans have lost their homes to foreclosure under Trump. Yeah, that happened. And so good morning, everybody else. We'll get to your comments, but this is the time where you can get involved in the conversation with our morning poll. So, like I said, RG brought up Trump's Armageddon. He's supposed to be doing something today as it relates to Iran. We're going to see what that's all about. And Dr. Marilyn is already talking about she filled up her tank halfway, and it was $40. So here's the morning poll. With 8 p.m., with the 8 p.m. deadline looming on the Strait of Hamas, what is your biggest concern regarding the potential escalation? Is it rising gas and energy costs at home? Is it the safety of Black service members or members at large overseas, or the impact of the 2026 midterm elections? So what is it? As the as we wait for whatever's going to happen in Iran, what's your biggest concern? Is it the midterms? Is it servicemen overseas, or the cost of gas and energy? Let us know in the chat if it's A, B, or C. Mike, what is your biggest concern?
Well, I would have to, from a behavior and point of view, be concerned about the men and women who are fighting for our own freedom. Every time in this country that we have been able to do what we do, we're able to do so because the men and women of America who are in the military have fought to help protect our democracy on the front line. And that has to be the priority. It has to be the reflection of demonstrating our appreciation. We just don't get to be peaceful here in America without someone fighting on our behalf. And so for me, that would have to be the top priority.
All right. So Dr. Marilyn says she prays for the country, okay. And I guess that does include the president, but yeah, I get it. She also says A, and Lady Leo says D, all of the above. I think I would say A and B. A and B. All right. So you guys keep those comments coming in the chat. Orange says, as a former combat veteran, I will say the men and women who are in harm's way. So he's choosing B. Keep the comments and the answers coming in the chat. And let's get into our first story, which relates to our first video, where the Congressional Black Caucus has been sued by a conservative group that claims scholarships discriminate against non-Black students. Now, the group, the American Alliance for Equal Rights, led by Edward Bloom, is the one who spearheaded a series of legal cases that ultimately brought about the end of affirmative action in college admissions. Now, this time he's going after the scholarships associated with the CBC, and he's saying that CBC scholarships discriminate against non-Black students. Make it make sense, Mike.
We have a movement in this country that has really been developing for many, many years. I mean, it started back, as I can remember in my time, back in 1979 of my research, that the Bakke case, reverse discrimination. And after that, we had the development of all of these reverse discrimination movements, including the whole movement around issues like Proposition 209 in California.
Your favorite.
So in California, we are the first state to vote against affirmative action and the question around that. So as we think about this recent attack legally on challenging the Black Caucus, in fact, we are in a time where we need to understand that in reality, Black Caucus is really targeting African descendants of slaves, ADOS. The ADOS individuals who are getting scholarships are not given scholarships because they are Black. They're being given scholarships because of the experiences that they have had historically in their families and in this country. They have been the inheritors of a legacy of relatives who have been enslaved. And so that is not simply because of the color of their skin. It's because of the culture of having the similarity of having experience and being a part of a legacy of slavery. That does not make it racial at all.
It doesn't make it racial. I mean, what they're doing to us, it's calculated, it hurts, and it is, detrimental to our survival, what they're doing. I've seen things where we've gone from 300,000 to 600,000 Black women unemployed. I've seen the stats for men are catching up to us. What they're doing to veterans, we know that anytime something like, let's just take the veterans, that home buyers, foreclosures, are attacking our veterans. We know that the percentage, if we're only 12% of the population, 12, 13% of the population at large in the United States. We know that percentage for African-American soldiers is going to be higher than the population that we are in this country. So everything impacts us the worst. And it seems like this Trump clan administration is doubling down. And it's like, how do you stop the train? The question is, how do you stop the train? And then the second question is it the midterms?
Well, again, it's a movement that's been developing for some time. Like I said, it started back that I can remember in more modern times in the Bakke case, the Alan Bakke case, where he felt he was discriminated against because an African American at University of Davis was able to get in to medical school because he or she had an environment where, as a minority, she was able to advance to medical school. And even though he was white, he had to be he competed against those individuals in his own environment. And the goal of the university was to have diversity, to have people of different communities to be a part of this publicly funded institution. And so that first lawsuit, where we also had a conservative court that ruled on his behalf, is the same movement that is still in existence today after the Bakke case. And we've had many other cases that have challenged affirmative action. And again, it's a movement. More recently, when we have the 209s, these state-funded affirmative action bans, California is not the only one. It was the first one that voted against it, but then you've had Florida, you have Texas, you have Washington, you have Arizona, you have Michigan, you have Nebraska, you have New Hampshire, and Oklahoma, all of whom have these affirmative action bans. Let's put it that way. That means that they are not wanting any set-asides for minorities. They're not wanting any special programs for women to be included in. It's a movement. In fact, in California, it was a Republican governor, Pete Wilson, and his friend Ward Connolly, who promoted this. And it continues to be promoted every day. And of course, this morning, you have shared with us the recent lawsuit attacking the Black Caucus of Congress for targeting people who have come from a lineage of enslavement. And they have now, rather than recognizing that perspective, said it's just because of the color of their skin. No, it's because of the experience that they have been in this country. And that in of itself is not racial. According to the environment that they have set forth, you cannot adopt anything or promote anything with regard to public dollars that has a identification of race or gender. So if it is not race or gender, it has to be cultural, something other than race and gender. And we've had this question around the issue of reparations. You know, people are saying, why can't all Blacks? Well, if you say all Blacks, then you have made it racial. So it is cultural that people who have been through slavery, that's what they have in common, not their race. They have the fact in common that they have been a part of a legacy of enslavement in terms of their ancestors. So again, this is the environment we've created today, and this is what we're up against. And this is the confrontation that we have with this continued movement to try to undo the civil rights gains that try to make sure that all Americans can enjoy the dream.
Yeah. And then when you think of, you know, we're having a conversation about affirmative action, and then they turned it into DEI, and then they took that away, which goes to show you how important affirmative action is, especially when you talk about it in the context of and the way you look at the scholarships. You know what I'm saying? It's and then Dr. Marilyn says, do they come after Asians and Native American scholarships? But the funny thing is this Bloom guy will use them as part of his lawsuit to say that it's unfair to them, you know, because they've listed Asians. You know, Asians have been, you know, at the forefront of a lot of lawsuits when it comes to affirmative action and DEI, you know, saying
well,
so.
You know, and once again, if we are getting the scholarships and implementing scholarships because of the color of their skin, that's one thing. If we are implementing scholarships because of the experiences that they have been through, that's another thing. So if we are advancing the Congressional Black Caucus scholarships because these people are American descendants of slaves, that has nothing to do with race. And that will stand up as a challenge, a real potent challenge, if you will, in court. And this is the reason why these young people have this scholarship, because we have discovered that those who are American descendants of slaves are last to be included in publicly funded projects and or benefits in this country. They really are. And it's not because of the color of their skin alone in the language of today. It's because of the experience and the legacy that they are a part of as to why they are.
The chat is chiming in. Mike V says that the Black population in New Hampshire is less than 1%. Make it make sense. Nancy Wall says if they would go do the right thing, then we wouldn't need these programs. They know we're just as qualified, sometimes more than them. And so it's very frustrating to see every day you wake up, you know, what they're stripping away from us. You know, they're doing bad things to everybody, but what they're doing to us. And to your point, in the strides that we made, you know, especially when it relates to civil rights, they are like spiking the ball in our face.
Right. Well, when we look at history, we'll see some patterns in history. One of the things that we have observed over time is that when we have leadership that seems to be Republican, that we have more promotion of these anti-affirmative actions and decisions. And when the Democrats are in, then we have more progressive opportunities for inclusion. It used to didn't be that way back in the days before when we had Reconstruction, but in terms of observance today, we have noticed this to be the fact. And so again, we have to look at all of the three forms of government. We have to look at the executive, and unfortunately, the Republicans are running that with Trump in the leadership.
Right.
And his action to changing policy is around proclamations. Then we look, secondly, at the legislative branch of government. And unfortunately, the Republicans are the majority there. And then we finally look at the judicial. Okay. And so then the conservatives are there as well. And so if you advance something and it goes through those three different branches of government, and all of them are of Republican leaning, and as we have said, we have observed in more recent history that they are the promoters of the anti-affirmative action movement. And so this is what we have to fight for. And this is why politically, as you have said time and again, getting out to vote is critically important. Taking back the House would help to impact the legislative branch.
Right. And so you brought up Democrats, and you brought out getting out the vote. But, you know, in the words of Stevie Wonder, heaven help us all. The Democrat Legislative Campaign Committee announced it would back candidates in races for both state and legislative chambers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. Now, the DLCC has announced candidates it will back in Arizona, in the Arizona Senate, the Georgia House, the Texas House, and the Iowa Senate. Now, the DLCC's announcement follows a string of wins in local races since Trump took office last year, and they're really excited about Democrats flipping 2 Florida legislative seats, with one of those seats being in Trump's country town, Mar-a-Lago. And so we were talking about that. But I mean, even the way that, you know, the DLCC, the DCCC, these are all, you know, Democratic, you know, branches of, you know, PACs that help, you know, candidates win. You know, there's always been this challenge of them focusing on white candidates and not supporting Black candidates. And they do this through their campaigning, and they do this through their spending of funds. You know, the lack of dollars that they put into Black media, and the lack of, you know, concern they have around Black voters. But when you look at the analysis, everybody talks about how Black voters hold the line, how we're the ones that flipped and shift the atmosphere when it comes to these elections. But yet these two organizations, the DLCC and the DCCC, they have a problem with just outright supporting Black media and Black voters. You have to knock on their door. You have to pound on their door. I mean, why is it that the party that needs Black people the most is the party that supports Black candidates the most? That's why you have PACs like the Collective PAC, Higher Heights. You know, you have the Black Church PAC. You have all of these PACs that have come up under Black leadership because the Democratic Party traditionally does not overwhelmingly support Black candidates.
Well, I think Dr. King said it famously years ago. It is the silence of my friends that concerns me. And so we have that still challenge today where we have to fight in the general population for equity. And we have to fight at home, if you can call the Democratic Party politically home. We have to fight there as well. Oftentimes to get included in the conventions, to speak and to be at the table. And you know what they say. If you are not at the table, you're where, Neil? You're on the menu.
On the you're on the chopping block. You're on the
That's
menu.
right. And so, yes, we have, that is what we have inherited. It is the legacy of those who paved the way before us. They had to do this fight. Dr. King had to do it in my time and your time, and others who follow, and those of us today who lead in every area, in every industry. Again, it is the American descendants of slaves. Finally, I will tell you that we have 6 civil rights acts embedded in the United States Constitution. And each of those acts are still vibrant today. And this whole issue about diversity, equity, and inclusion are just outcomes of the foundation of laws that matter. Those civil rights acts started out reinforcing the rights of African Americans because we were freedmen. We had been enslaved and became free, and there was a need for additional laws at the federal level to ensure our freedom, the right of liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so you've had since 1866, you had a Civil Rights Act, and 1875, you had a Civil Rights Act. You had a Civil Rights Act in 1957, which was really a very critically important Civil Rights of 57 because it told us that we need enforcement. And in that Civil Rights Act of 1957, we had the development of the Civil Rights Division in the Attorney General's office, the establishment of a policy group, the United States Commission on Civil Rights, and more importantly, the Equal Opportunity Commission, in where complaints can be filed. So while we were making policy, we discovered that there had to be some consequences for people who violated those policies. And the Civil Rights Act of 1957 gave us the teeth in the law to make a difference in terms of making sure that people find it. And so we have to continue to file these civil rights violations. We have to know that there have been other subsequent civil rights acts, including the landmark 1964 decision. And one of my mentors, Attorney Julius Chambers, was an attorney who fought Title VII that dealt with discrimination, which is there are 2 critically important parts of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The first one is Title VI, that talks about the fact of fairness and justice in society in general. We can go to the park, we can drink out of the same fountains, so forth and so on. But then Title VII dealt with non-discrimination in the workplace, not only in government jobs and city council offices, but also in private corporations, such as in Duke Power Company, where he filed Griggs versus Duke Power, where in fact in North Carolina is where that case came from. There was an implementation of a test that was given to Black people, had nothing to do with the job in which people were going to apply. And so the Griggs case said you cannot give a test that's not relevant to an individual for employment. And it didn't have to be a government job. It could be a private job. And so that's what it did. So in summary, we have these 6 civil rights acts that are enshrined in the United States Constitution. that are there today that are still critically important today. There was a 1987.
Okay, Mike, wait a minute.
We can go on.
We
We'll come
love
back to that one.
the
Well,
knowledge. We
let's
love
stop
the
at
knowledge.
64. Let's stop at 64. We'll stop at that one.
But yeah, let's stop there. But you know, like to tie it all back to what we're talking about, you know, the right to vote. That's what we're talking about. And you know, and it's exhausting to be able to know that all of this is happening to our country, and then you give us that history of how far we come and the variables as Black people that's working for us and against us. You know, we have generations that understand what you're saying, and that, you know, we're saying amen, and we're saying, man, speak it. And then you have another generation under us that don't know, don't really care. You know what I'm saying? And all of these things are coming at us to take us back to where our ancestors, I mean, fought for us to be today. And so, you know, how we related, you know, to what's happening with parties, you know, where do Black people fit in when it comes to Democrat and Republican? You know, because I think that we're sick and tired of both. But it's like you pick the lesser evil, right? But, you know, you were talking about, you know, how we have to fight within the party. You know, I'm thinking of just the last Democratic National Convention where people, Black people who were accredited to be on the floor couldn't get seats on the floor. You know what I mean? And so this cycle, it continues to happen. And it's like, how do we really leverage Black political power? I mean, we're in the seats, Black faces in high places, we're there. But how do we really leverage the power? And is it at the midterms? And how do we let our people know that it is important? Because we know midterms are typically low voter turnout. I don't care how you engage the base. I don't care what you do. Midterms are traditionally, or any election outside of a presidential election, has low voter turnout. How do we take all of that, what you're saying, and all of those strides, and, you know, the work, the equity, the death, you know, the suction of life to fight? You know, how do we take that and channel that to really, like, you know, get our Black political power, and then, you know, actually use it to combat all of this stuff that this administration and these white faces in high places are throwing at us?
We've inherited a legacy of fighting.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Yeah. We tired of fighting. It's exhausting. We know we got to fight, but it's exhausting.
Well, you know, get you an apple and a pear and get on back out there and continue to do it. And in many ways, those in our generation, we have not really rolled up our sleeves to put in the energy to fight for our generation as did those before us in the golden, what I'll call the golden era. The kings, the parents and grandparents who went out there marching. Many of us haven't marched anywhere for anything. And we are now the leaders. And
we just posted on social media.
Well, we have to roll up our sleeves. And it may not be a physical march somewhere, but it has to be some leadership action, has to be some decision that moves us forward. And that we can do. You know, we have more talent, we have more resources because of what the golden era leaders did to help pave the way for us to be there. We have been graduates of the big schools only because people knocked down the doors to get us there. And so it is our time with this education and/or skills and experience that we were able to get because somebody picked up the phone to get us that job, that we need to take that experience and share it with someone else. Each one, reach one to teach one about the legacy.
That's right. That's right. Dr. Marilyn is feeling me, though. She says, I'm a federal government worker, Doc. But these people make it harder to prove because of their microaggressions. That's a whole nother conversation. But when we're talking about the liberty to choose, some of us are Republicans and, we ain't learned yet. Check this next story out. U.S. Rep. John James, who's a Republican running for the Michigan governor seat, was booed by several delegates at the Michigan GOP convention last weekend. So a video shows James' rival Perry Johnson walking through the packed room as he shakes hands with fellow attendees. Then just as James took the stage, the boos began. Now, he was originally viewed as the early front runner, but we know things change in races. But, what do you,
Well, you're talking about polls. Polls change like diapers, The day you're up and tomorrow you're down in the polls. So oftentimes you cannot necessarily rest your laurels on polls. You've got to roll up your sleeves and you've got to do the work. You've got to go door to door. You've got to get on the phone. You've got to make a difference to get your message out. And most importantly, you've got to turn out your votes to the polls. And there is no shortcut. And it's not anything that is unknown. We know what needs to be done. We've got to do it.
100%. Let's head to California, where former California Governor Gray Davis has said he is against the idea of lower polling Democrat candidates dropping out of this year's race, even if that leads to the party being locked out of the election. Now, Davis, a Democrat who led California from 1999 to 2003, said candidates need to ignore the state Democratic Party's pressure to quit from the race. He told Insider California Politics, tons and tons of people asked me to drop out. That obviously was fuel for the fire. And he ended up winning his race. And so the Democrat Party wants higher polling candidates to consolidate more Democrat votes in the June primary. So basically, the Democratic Party and a large list of candidates that are running as Democrats, they want at least half of them to drop out so that the Republicans possibly will not take the lead. Because what happens is the top two, whether you're Democrat or Republican, are the ones to excel to the election in November. So let's just say all the Democrats cross each other out and two Republicans get the top votes, the top numbers, then they advance. And so the Democrat Party is up in arms about this. Mark, Mike, Dr. Davis, what do you say?
Well, I think that there are many variables in politics and nobody really ever really knows. First, let me say that Gray Davis has made a comeback because I think that there are many people who feel what he is saying to be true. He's a living example of it being true. Secondly, let's look at many of the variables. California is supposed to be a Democratic state. So you're telling me that, this whole dynamic of all of the Democrats are going to split between all of these 8 exciting candidates. And then they're going to allow 2 Republicans to run in. Based upon what? Certainly it's a possibility. Certainly we'd be concerned about it, but it's not a situation where we know for sure that to be the case. It could be that the public is looking at other candidates who are not a part of the random sample that some of those who are doing the polls are implementing. Maybe they are not sampling those pockets of people that are going to make a difference. For example, how many people in various communities that you know of, Neil, have been polled? So there are many variables here.
But let me say, when I'm polling or I'm just having conversation, penetration and frequency matters. And Tom Steyer is the one to watch, unfortunately. When I talk to just anybody, even family members, Tom Steyer, it's because he's on our TVs. I'm watching CNN now. His commercials pop up. Stevie Wonder's radio station, KJLH. It seems like he didn't bought the damn radio station. Every time you come on, he has one of the most progressive and you know, unapologetically Black state legislators, Isaac Bryan, backing him, which means a lot. Isaac is doing commercials for him on television, on radio. I mean, he's the one to watch. It seems like it's going to sneak up and take this thing if somebody don't stop him.
Well,
So money matters
I
and
like Isaac
frequency
Bryan
matters.
too, but I don't know if the endorsement of Isaac Bryan is going to net that kind of assurity when you look at the history of the voting population in California. We've had many billionaires to run: Meg Whitman, Carly Fiorina, Al Checky, and now we have Steiner. I think that we don't really know what's going to happen. Tony Thurmond has won every race he's been in. You just don't know how things are going to
And you
unfold.
brought up Tony Thurmond. Tony Thurmond is the only African American running for governor. And so, I mean, I just find it interesting, you know, especially when I hear family members who say that they are starch Democrats say Tom Steiner's name. That concerns, because he's penetrating the market, and I hear what you're saying.
Well,
but
he's
I don't
a
think
billionaire.
that he should be
He has money.
underestimated.
He has money in his campaign, rightfully so, and he's made the right purchases, rightfully so. And yes, he's going to get out there. And I would think that the other billionaires did the same thing. But the problem is we can't really say what the population who is going to vote, what they're feeling right now. We can't really say which way the wind is really blowing. We may have an idea. We may do some polls, but I caution you on the polls that have been done thus far to say, have they really tapped into
They haven't.
A random sampling of pockets of people that matter who are not being considered in these polls.
And these polls are tricky, and I don't know if they're being designed to be that way, because when you look at Jasmine Crockett's race, they polled her high the entire time.
Yes.
If you listen to all of the polls, I mean, polls from universities, polls from local station affiliates, polls from national networks, polls from community colleges, the Gallup poll, all the polls had her bleeding in double digits, and she still lost. And that's happened to other candidates as well. And so you can't really trust the polls, and really the polls you have on a day-to-day basis are the ones that I'm basing mine on. And that's why I'm saying I'm concerned, because when I talk to Black people, that's the name that keeps coming up. Steiner.
I see. Well, politics is an inexact science. It's an inexact science. So we really don't know. I don't know these polls that we are seeing and hearing about, ABC poll, NBC polls, CBS polls. Where are they doing the samples? Are they going into communities that we are familiar with? Because we know that there will be some voting going on in areas like South Los Angeles, for example. Are they, just as one example, a part of the random samples that we're getting the results from and talking about and embracing? We're embracing these random sample polls without knowing the details of who's being polled. And so again, this gubernatorial race is going to be critically important. You cannot count anyone out because you never know what's going to happen in a political environment if it is an inexact science. So I think Governor Gray Davis is correct. And more importantly, the decision that should be made to support and reflect democracy ought to be what we agreed to. All the people who are running, the election will be June 2nd, and we'll have a decision in that time. I think that's the best, the fairest, and equitable way in which to treat the candidates.
All right, so moving on, the Black leaders and FAMU alumni are still mourning the death of Nancy Matea Bowen. Now, she's the Florida Democrat that was preparing to run for Congress. She was the Coral Springs, Florida vice mayor. She was recently found dead in her home by police.
Oh,
And yeah, and was the sister. This makes it even more tragic. Now we find out she was the sister of Donovan Joshua Lee Matea. She was a Parkland school shooting survivor, and she died of suicide in December. And so this story just keeps getting sadder and just more tragic. She was allegedly murdered by her husband. He's been taken into custody. Videos of him have surfaced where he's like always at the shooting range, always killing animals. I mean, it's just heartbreaking because I saw so many in Black leadership just, acknowledging her, talking about how tragic it is. And it's always tragic when somebody is murdered. But because she was such a leader in, the fight that we're talking about this morning, we just wanted to acknowledge her. We wanted to say her name and send prayers to our family.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. So let's move on to education. A new study has revealed that many popular graduate degrees don't come with paychecks to justify the cost. Now, the new report released by the Post-Secondary Education of Economics Research Center at American University confirmed that secondary degrees in fields such as social work, psychology, and curriculum and instruction, that's pretty much education, do not yield as mighty returns as some believe. The new information may lead students to think twice before taking on more debt to pursue a master's degree. Now, they estimated how much graduates typically earn before and after a graduate degree and found that the aforementioned fields yield zero gains. Now, on the flip side, some graduate programs pursuing law, medicine, and pharmacy degrees frequently land higher paying jobs that benefit their pockets in the long term. So, I mean, for me, the takeaway is, debt is a real thing. So if you're going to go get your master's degree, pick something that will, yield fruit instead of, acquiring debt. That's what I take away from that.
I think that's excellent, and I agree. And students have a responsibility to do your research. And there are ways in which, with today's technology, you can do it right away. Figure out where you want to be financially and figure out what the trend is in terms of those degrees that are applicable to where you want to be. We know that STEM professions are certainly vital. We know that the business world is still vital today. Financing and those kind of things, media and communication is definitely also vibrant. So students have a responsibility.
And AI, I saw an article that AI, a lot of a lot of students are changing their majors to AI and technology focus, which is STEM.
That's STEM.
It's STEM, but they focus a lot on the term AI.
Yeah, and also leadership, management, supervision, and leadership. So these are the areas that are promising, that are sustainable in terms of a long career. And you want to look at that before you just jump into some degree program,
Right.
making sure that, as you have suggested, that you look at it in ways in which you can embrace it and know that this is where you want to go. Absolutely.
It's so funny because now when I think back, when you would see the movies and there was always that one family member that lived in college, they never left. And they
Right.
would get degree after degree. And
Right.
but you never thought, as a child, never thought about the debt side of that. I just thought it was funny, like when are you gonna really, come out and get a job? But there's a whole debt side of that. And I mean, unless you come from a multi-million-dollar family, there is gonna be some loans, unless you're just getting tons and tons of scholarships. But I mean, that's just funny when I think about that in hindsight.
Well, some of
The
us are
debt that they were
lifelong
acquiring.
learners. And I guess if you're in education, that's okay, but you really do need not get in debt behind some degree that doesn't net anything for you. So yeah, let's make some wise choices. Let's look and decide what we want to do and where we want to be. You want to be in the finance world, and investment banking can get you to where you want to be because you've researched it and you see the kind of money being made there, then that's where you ought to be. You know?
Yeah. Michelle Madison says, my significant other just got his master's in AI and he's doing very well. Yeah, I mean, that is the future.
Yes.
And they say that there's going to be a lot of millionaires made from AI and entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Yeah.
Healthcare is also a very good business for many people, and the leadership of healthcare and the various administrative positions around the healthcare industry is a vibrant career for many people as well. So look at those various areas and industries. Obviously, STEM we know is a guarantee, but if those skills are not your best, you could look at, again, the financial industry, the business world, and the MBA degrees tend to hold their value.
Right.
And of course, our traditional, as you have suggested, the pharmacy, the law, and the medicine are traditional ones. So yes.
Right. And speaking of education, the university community is sounding the alarm after a decision to pause Pan-African Studies, a Pan-African Studies graduate program. I want you to take a look at this reporting from the Wave News out of Louisville from journalist Julia Richardson. Take a look at this.
It's about a trend that's been happening at the university that's negatively impacting Black faculty, staff, and students for the last few years.
Tonight, local scholars and graduates are expressing concern about the University of Louisville's decision to pause the graduate courses in its own Department of Pan-African Studies. While the school has laid out its rationale for the suspension, one professor says he wants to convince them to reverse course. Wave News reporter Julia Richardson shares part of that exclusive interview tonight and one graduate's perspective on this unique experience, Julia.
Jose, professors in the Pan-African Studies Department say they were blindsided by the university's decision, and they were given no warning before an email was sent out a couple of weeks back. Now, the university says it's a funding issue and a response to low enrollment, but for those involved with the department, it's about a lot more than just numbers. Dr. Ricky Jones is a professor in U of L's Department of Pan-African Studies. Jones says a few weeks back, he and other department staff got an email from the university that they weren't expecting.
Your program has been paused. It's being paused, and you'll have no graduate assistantships. The reaction for all of us was shock, really, because you don't do something that major by email. You have a conversation with the department chair. That conversation was not had. So he was blindsided, and so were we.
In a statement, U of L's Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences said all graduate teaching assistant programs were impacted by reductions. And, quote, public claims that the pause of doctoral admissions in Pan-African Studies reflects an effort to close or undermine the department are categorically false. The PAS PhD program has faced several years of low applications and enrollments, resulting in all allocated GTA lines for 2026 being unfilled.
We were never going to meet some of the numeric thresholds that they put out, but it's really poor leadership and short-sighted leadership, and shallow engagement to not look at the qualitative benefit of a department like ours.
Jones says the department is irreplaceable, and it's one of the oldest Pan-African Studies departments in the country. The department also offered the first Black Studies PhD in the South. Jones shared his concerns about the change on social media, posting this video on Facebook and TikTok.
Last week, we got word that they are pausing.
And support started pouring in from higher education institutions all over the country, along with former students.
Most of all, what I loved about the department is that they make you feel like you're a part of a family. Why would you ever want to get rid of something like that?
For Jones, it's not only about this decision, but a series of decisions that the university has made over the last couple of years.
We don't know what's going to happen next, right? You wipe out the Commission on Diversity of Racial Equality. You wipe out the Black Faculty and Staff Association. You wipe out the Multicultural Center. You set up the Porter Scholars, which was set up to increase the enrollment of Black students at the school. It can no longer do that.
Jones tells me he appreciates the support the department has gotten from people all across the country, and there is still time to make change. He added that anyone who wants to can email the university's administration about their concerns. Julia Richardson, Wave News.
And Julia.
Well, I think this is something that can set a precedent that can happen to many other universities across the country. And so we should be paying attention to what's happening in Louisville. Mike, I want to get your thoughts.
Absolutely. It is a reflection of who we are in America in terms of American descendants of slaves. We've just talked about this in the beginning of the show. We've talked about how it's impacted government and the policy and the lack of the support for African Americans and the threat of the scholarships. But we've said that it's not because they are African American, it's because they are American descendants of slaves. And the same dynamic is true on the university campus. How did they reach down of all the departments of social science, not reach to the Asian American studies, not reach to women's studies, not reach to other minority studies, but they felt most comfortable in starting this cut where? At the Pan-African studies. Mm-hmm. And so again, we've inherited this challenge of fighting, and we have to fight on the college campus as we've always had to do. To take our rightful place, to have the opportunity for equal protection that the other faculty and academic departments have. We're going to have to fight for it. Mm-hmm. That's my take. Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying there's breaking news. Trump on Deadline, a whole civilization will die tonight.
Is that what Trump said?
Yeah. Trump on Deadline for Iran, a whole civilization will die tonight. And they're also reporting that Israel has already started striking railroads. And I mean, it is. And remember, they're ahead of us. So their midnight is going to be soon. You know, it's like they're ahead of us. And so U.S. officials, U.S. has struck military targets on Iran's soil. And so here we have it, folks.
Well, I think that the governor of Maryland said it, that we are a country, even though it does not seem so. We're a country under war.
Israel launches strikes on Iran's transportation routes.
Yeah. So we're a country under war right now, and that we have to really pay.
And doesn't the president have to go to Congress?
Congress is the body of government that has the authority to declare war. And so I guess your question would be, did the Congress declare this war? And I guess the answer to that is what we've heard is that they did not.
Israel targeting railways, bridges, highways across Iran. That's what's happening right now, folks. All right. One more story here on American soil. Let's go to Houston, where the Houston housing market has grown more affordable in the recent months, but homes are sitting longer before selling. And that may leave some sellers wondering why easier prices haven't translated into faster deals, probably because we got to buy gas.
Wow. Well, I saw in Texas where there are numerous suburban communities where, in fact, they are not people buying the homes, and they are given incentives and $50,000 financial breaks on the overall cost of homes. It looks like, Neil, we need to put some coins together and go get a summer property.
House in Houston, right? Go to Houston.
Somewhere in Texas and some of the suburban areas as well. So they usually like to build things big in Texas. I don't know if that means that people should consider this is a grab, to be able to do that. So I think that it's something for us to look at
Well, I know that my niece that's at Texas Southern, I might send her this story because she might, we might need to put our coins together, and the family come on together and get that, home for her.
That's right.
So that's something to consider, folks, if you're interested in buying some property. Houston is hot right now. The price is low. The price is right.
The price is right.
All right, so let's jump into a couple of Black facts before we get out of here. Booker T. Washington, educator and founder of the Tuskegee Institute. On this day in 1940, he was honored with a U.S. postage stamp, the first Black American to receive a stamp. And we know now everybody has a stamp. Marvin Gaye has a stamp.
Well, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties, Brother Mike.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
It's the end of the show. It's no worries. It's the end of the show. Our Black fact was about,
okay, gotcha.
Booker T. Washington and his stamp. And let me see. Here she is again.
Mike. It just dropped out. I'm sorry.
Well, technology, hey, it gets a break every once in a while. What can we say?
Okay, you guys go ahead. I'll jump in after y'all finish.
Well, no, we just waiting on you, and you were telling us about the homes we could get in Houston. We appreciate that. We talked about the Booker T. Washington stamp.
Last thing before we get out of here. Tupac Shakur on this day in 2017 was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we know right now with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, New Edition is leading the way. They put out a campaign to Candy Girls, and they have over 1 million votes because they said vote for us. So maybe we need New Edition. The Democratic Party needs to hire New Edition.
Yes.
To make sure all the Candy Girls.
That's right. Whatever we can do to boost up the interest and do some motivation among our voters, because turnout is so critically important. And we love it when entertainers are sharing in the message and urging and motivating people to get out to do the right thing, which is to vote. Now more than ever, particularly with what we have discovered on this very show, we know we've got to get out to vote.
Right. Michelle Madison says, thanks, Brother Mike, for your insight. They love your insight, Mike. That's why we have you here on Tuesdays. You'll be back next Tuesday, right?
Well, thank you. Yes, we'll be back next Tuesday and look forward to discussing the issues of the day.
All right, y'all. In the meantime, in between time, head on over to blackpressusa.com for the latest in news. And we definitely will be monitoring what's happening today in Iran. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace out.
Thank you. Thank you so much.